And we are now live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the How to Fix Your Team show. We're going to start with our trailer video for our sponsors. We value our sponsors more than you'd think and more than they'd expect. Of course, we also premiere them. So here we go.
Ready, set, go! Coming to you live, it's the Auto Hub Show with Ian and Jeff. Here we go.
Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Kayla Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient Social Selling for the Car Industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
I was at Larry Coleman's seminar. So happy I came, having such a good time. Thank you so much, Larry.
One of the best trainers in this area for sure. I don't know about anywhere else, but as far as I know, he's the best. So, told you before, take advantage. Thank you for having me here.
I'm at Larry Feldman's seminar, and what I found is that what he's really good at doing with his knowledge and with his training, he's not filling a bucket, he's lighting a fire.
Always to improve. Every month we want to improve better on what we did the month before, maybe the year before. It's about how fast we can get the cars done with quality work to get it to the front line, because that's where we make our money. And the bottom line is, the longer it takes, the more money you spend. We want to get it down as low as possible. Right now, like I said, we're in a great stage. We're at 4.5 days. In recon, we want to know how quickly we can get the cars out of the recon process and to the front line. The average days in recon and then the time to the line are the most important thing to be looking at. I'm Mike Burrell, and Service Director at JM Lexus.
And good morning, and a special thank you to all our sponsors. As we prepare to celebrate 3 years, we wouldn't be able to do the show without our sponsors, and of course, we love them. So the show today is about teams and how to fix your team, but more importantly, leadership. There's a few books that I looked at. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott. You can definitely check her out on LinkedIn. Conflict Without Casualties, which is also a great one. And if you're looking for another book to read, Radical Candor is also another book I highly recommend. So, Jeff, let's go with our disclaimer. If you wanted to read it, it's behind me, but go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, so I was going to put it as a background, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. So do it for next time. We figured to play with the carry a little bit more on the I'm standing here breaking your screen. Well, the opinion shared today is over the podcast and not necessarily that. We can have a Jeff I'll be on a show. And I promise next week's show, I'm going to do it behind like a weather person, you know?
Rock and roll. Thanks, Jeff. So I do a lot of polls. So this poll was about crave, demand, personal customer service as we get into the AI arms race. It looks like Bing is finally back on the map with AI-enabled web browsing. But the big question is, how will that impact every industry? So I did this poll. It was about, what people thought. So you can definitely check that out online. So the show today is about how to fix your dealership team. I couldn't resist using a Hans and Franz clip from the Saturday Night Live back in the day. But let's get into it. Mr. Jeff, and welcome.
And welcome, everybody. And thank you for being with us here, because we had a little break last month or last week for month end. And we're looking forward to our new show this week. And we got some great people joining us, and a new person to the show today is our good friend Bruno. And I'm going to introduce him in just a moment, but I'm going to ask him a question first. And actually introduce himself. And Bruno, I will not pronounce your last name because I don't want to get it right. You can tell us that in a second. But tell us something. In your opinion, what's the level of quality out of 10 of, on average, of today's dealership teams? Now, yes, we know there's some that are 10s, and we can all think of the ones. But in general, what do you think out of 10?
I'm going to have to say a 6, Ian, because I spend my day in dealerships. I visit, on average 3 or 4 a day, and I always make sure that every day I get out to new ones that I've never been in before. And I observe the variable ops, the fixed ops, and as you say, some of them you walk in and it is a red carpet experience, and it doesn't matter the brand. Some Mercedes stores do a terrible job. Some Nissan stores do a great job. But we always talk about culture in this business. And I think we all know, in about 90 seconds, we know what the culture is in any store once we walk through that door.
Terrific. And I did miss out the part if you could introduce yourself and tell us about your business and your connection.
It is pronounced Lucarelli. And I know you got plenty of Italians up there where you guys come from, so it shouldn't be that hard. I'm the former director of advertising sales for eBay Motors, the largest automotive website in the world. I was part of the first 100 or so salesmen hired at autotrader.com. I came out of the television business to work for Cox, and we built that sales force up to 1,100 people at one point for AutoTrader and turned it into a $4 billion business. So I had the very, very lucky chance of working for Chip Perry and Hal Green, 2 great legends in the business, and was part of building this up. I was on various teams at AutoTrader. I was a liaison with General Motors. I consulted with General Motors on the current IMR digital rules. So I feel lucky to be there kind of at the beginning when all this was digital. Scary to think that in 2005, 2/3 of auto dealers in the US and Canada did not have a website in 2005. And that was by choice. That wasn't because they didn't know how to get one. And I think that goes to the heart of the conversation we're having today, too, which is culture.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And it's an interesting point you made. There was a time when you could enter a Mercedes dealership and you knew what level of attention and care you would get. You go into a Nissan dealership or something similar and really not know, generally domestic store not know. But these days, I've seen a lot of Mercedes stores that you walk in and some kid walks up to you in a polo shirt and says, "Hi, can I help you?" And it's very interesting. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Our next official guest today is our good friend Don Graff. I do have to comment on something though. This is our first show when we have had more people wearing ties than not. I am like, oh my God, I think we've gone back to 2005. It's tremendous. But our good friend Don Graff is joining us from Bonita Springs, Florida. I love Bonita Springs. I don't know why I say it like this, but I love it. Don.
Yeah, come and visit us. It was 95 yesterday.
We get 58. So Don, please, now I got you, you're great in the middle of a drink. Introduce yourself and tell us your opinion on the level of scale out of 10 on the quality of today's teams.
I'm the director of Don Graff Automotive Marketing. We work with dealers to improve their performance with both their employees and with the general public by reducing turnover and improving their forward strategies for taking care of people. We do that with our acquisition, our retention, and our losing my voice, and our reward strategy. 3-part strategy: keep people engaged throughout the dealership, parts, service, and sales, so that everybody has a team purpose. Everybody knows what they should be doing. When we start talking about teams, I was fortunate enough to be on several good teams in my early career. First, it was a prestige team in Upper New Jersey. They had 5 stores that are in the top 10 in the country: Lexus, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, and the Jaguar store. But then I was fortunate enough to go work for Steve Caliper at Clinton Farm Truck Country. I was in charge of 15 dealerships, and we did 4,000 cars on the internet. And I think it was just before then that I actually, maybe a little bit after I met Bruno, became aware of Bruno's activities with Auto Trader, and we were a great Auto Trader dealer at that time.
And your opinion?
Old New Jersey guys.
New Jersey guys.
Nobody talks to like the Jersey guys, man. The only one who talks to Jersey guys is Larry.
Wow.
So Don, what's your opinion on the level of quality of today's teams?
I think the teams are 6 or 7. I agree with Bruno. 6 or 7 is a rule. I was 30 something before I went to work for a Mercedes dealer, and that Mercedes dealer saw something in me and sent me an NIADA dealer academy. And unfortunately, someone came with a big paycheck and bought the dealership. And his son was the same age as I was. So what do you think happened to me? I went out of there and I went to Chrysler land. And I went to run a Chrysler store. It wasn't quite the same as running the Benz store environment. There were no processors. This is total city of grants.
Third out of 5 in the car business, you gotta work in a Chrysler store. Because you know something? It's there's no other brand that's got so many different owners and such varied clientele from your Grand Cherokee people at $90,000 to your pickup truck at 90 grand, except the difference is who's deeper in debt and longer term. So it's very interesting. You meant the thing about teams and taking care of your people, not just your customer. Our opening video with Simon Sinek that said how many CEOs they say it's about their customer. When was the last time they talked to a customer? And same thing in car dealerships. The people that run them in general, except for a fellow that just logged in, Dave Jackson, how many of them talk to their customers? It's amazing. But I do want to recognize the other people here who aren't official guests, but our good friends Larry, Peter, Joe, and Doug I don't know if he's not on my screen anymore, but we appreciate you being here. Ian, next question, please.
Yeah, we also got Jamie and Dave as well. So next question. Well, there's a viral a couple weeks ago video spread as a sales manager at GSM in a physical fight at Toyota store. We actually played it, I believe. I'm sure you saw it. It was taken down pretty quick. Does it have any relation to today's topic? And if so, how? So let's start with, I don't know, maybe Larry has an opinion on that one, since you're in dealerships and training all the time.
Sure. That incident was just 2 imbeciles behaving badly. I don't want to tar the whole industry. And as to Bruno and Don's comments about a 6 and a 7, I think I saw an article in Automotive News that the reason most of these companies are not up to snuff is they don't use my company, Career Changers. You know what? That might not have been in Automotive News. I think I sent that out to you. I digress. Here's the deal. Society is breaking down a little bit. We're a little bit less disciplined. We're a little bit less interested in taking pride in how we behave and how we dress and how we act. So that's going to seep through a little bit. But that was just an aberration. I would have fired both those guys right away, no questions asked. I don't care what your beef is. You don't do that in front of the public, and do that. So I thought that was pretty negative. But there's still hope, right? There's still a chance to make these dealerships better. There's plenty of people out there, like everybody on this storm call, that still cares and is still interested in trying to make the industry better and make themselves better. So I'm trying to take a positive spin rather than a negative spin.
Yeah, thanks for that, Larry. So let's go ahead with Bruno on that. What do you think? You've spent a lot of time in dealerships.
Well, and in fact, I also had a unique opportunity of running an automotive staffing company. So we would approach dealerships and we would take over everything below service advisor. We would run the porters, we would run the lot techs, the the parts runners, the shuttle drivers. My average invoice to a dealer was $40,000 a month. How many people here have invoiced dealers for $40,000 a month on a regular basis? And it wasn't an invoice; it was an ACH pulled twice a month. So we had a very, very serious view. So I was trained to go into a fixed ops department and within about 15 minutes determine did they need our service or not. Not everybody did, but I have to tell you, most people did. And people spend most of their time in the fixed ops department. They spend what? A few hours in the sales department, but then the rest of their experience with the dealership is in the back of the house. And that really is where some people get it right, some people get it wrong. But what we found out was how different so many companies, the different attitude they took toward fixed ops. Some people were just so focused on selling new cars up front, and they couldn't understand why they got hammered by the manufacturer. And it's because their fixed ops department was a disaster. Nobody was greeting customers. Cars were lined up down the highway. And these are major operations that were doing 3,000 ROs a month, 4,000 ROs a month that had no process. And we're all going to say the word process a lot, right? So I really learned. I mean, I started in this business as far as working with dealerships at Cox, and we built the first BDCs because we found out we were about to go out of business because the dealers did not have a process for our leads. They didn't know that all the leads were going to the receptionists, right? Remember Don back in those days? So we had to go in and actually fix the dealerships because when I inherited a listed Auto Trader, there were more people canceling. And a lot of people don't know this about Auto Trader, but in 2004, we were actually losing more dealers than we were signing. And it wasn't because we had a bad product. We had a great product. It was because the dealers had no idea what to do. So when the invoice came up, they said, let's not pay that invoice this month. I went to one dealership and we need help with our Auto Trader. This is true. And I sat down and they had one computer. I reached down and turned it on and they looked at each other and said, you see, that's how you turn it on. They didn't even know how to turn on their computer, but they signed up for a .com, right? I was thrown out of dealerships for saying the word .com. Keep your internet customers out of here. This is what we get when we work in a franchise world. This isn't Bank of America where we can say all 3,500 branches are now going to implement this policy. There's about 18,000 franchise dealers here in the US, and add Canada, you've got 21,000. Well, you've got about 3,000 different companies that own these dealerships. So you could brag all you want about getting the top 10 dealers in the US, the top 10 dealer groups. Guess what? Get them all, Penske, AutoNation, Holman, etc. You've still only got about 3% of the stores. So this is a problem that it's kind of like painting Brooklyn Bridge. You've got thousands and thousands of companies that own these dealerships. Some have owned them for 3 generations. Some bought them a month ago. And some of them are fantastic. I mean, you're working with people like Germain, absolutely first-class organization. I mean, they just do almost everything. It's hard to find a mistake with the Germains. And then you have others that we all know of that are just a constant disaster. And so it really does. We're going to keep using the word process. It really comes down to process. That's what I learned working in fixed ops staffing. We did have, amazingly, so one of the best companies out there was Holman Automotive, one of the best companies to work for. They were our client, and we had 300 or 400 people on the ground with Holman. Why? Because they acknowledged that that portion of the business, porters, lot techs, parts runners, was very hard to manage, and they allowed us to manage for them, to manage that business for them. So I guess a smart dealer knows their limitations, is what I learned working in fixed ops. They knew how to give a portion of the business to somebody else. I'm currently working with a company called Traction, Traxtion. We're big in Canada. And again, our clients use our system to make sure that anybody that needs a tire gets approached about a tire. It's a text system with the tread readers. It's fantastic. We crush Hunter. And so again, it is one of the best processes I've ever seen. That's why I'm working with them now. So yeah, I, again, have been around the country, been afforded a great opportunity to go all over this country, work with dealers in 20 different states, and the same problems arise, big and small, and it comes down to culture, it comes down to process. Are you paying attention? And yes, it is about your people. If your people are being treated well, they're going to treat the customer well.
You know what's funny, Bruno? I have to, you mentioned something very interesting. Something I learned a long time ago when I first started doing, as a GM in the store and getting more involved in fixed ops. I can't remember the numbers. It's like 96% of people, the first person who asks them to buy tires, they buy tires.
Correct.
But no, it's like when you talk about a process, a third of the driver sits there and comes back to the customer. Madam customer, we check the tread wear of your tires. They're at, I'm not sure the states have used 4 millimeters or not, but they're 4 millimeters. They should be replaced because by your next service, they'll be bald. I've got a quote for you. Oh, great. Yes, I'll take them. It's amazing.
Everyone on this call knows tires are the #1 point of defection for customers. Why do you only do 1,000 ROs a month continuously? Why aren't those increasing when you sell more cars? People fall out of warranty. Their tires need changing. They go to Tire Kingdom, they go to Firestone, and that's it. They're done. Firestone's throwing coupons at them. So yes, it is a big, big overlook. It was fascinating. It's why I joined this company, Traction, because it was kind of like the internet in 2004 or 5. It's staring everybody in the face, but nobody knows what to do about it.
Hey, Bruno, I think it's both sad and scary that we could have had the same discussion 10 or 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
I recruit service and sales personnel, so I get it. Everybody gets in my ear. And always one of the biggest problems, of course, is that you lose people through service. It starts, like you said, with the tires, then it's all the service, and then they lose them as a customer. You would think they would understand the house is on fire. And yet, how many dealerships, I'm in a lot of them, don't have sales service meetings, don't try to integrate and make the connection between sales and service. It's just nuts.
They call it the wall, right? The wall between the two.
Bruno, I was in a dealership a couple of weeks ago, and the GM said to me, "Okay, you did great with what can help you do with my services? Let's have some fun." We walked back. His receptionist, which is always the key to everything, right? That first point of contact. I watched her answer the phone. I said, "I have a fabulous tip for you." What is it? I says, "When you pick up the phone, say, 'Let me see if he's at his desk.' Okay, he's there. I'll connect him. Okay, he's not at his desk. Would you like voicemail or can I take a message?" Makes all the difference in the world because I've never met anybody that says, "Man, that's great. I just got the guy's voicemail." You don't know if he's going to pick it up in a minute or in 7 years. So if we just make this thing a little bit more about human beings, and you know, we're so, this is a car technical term from New Jersey, we're so tied up in this tech bullshit that instead of using it and integrating it with humans, we think it's going to take the place of humans. Listen, if humans could be replaced by robots, my wife would have got rid of me 20 years ago and she would have hollered at the robot, okay?
Let me just jump in there for a second. I agree.
Is this about my wife and the robot, Peter? Because I'm very
No. My wife and I have had discussions about that, but it's not about that. So just going back to just one quick thing here. This business is about people, process, and then technology. We have to look at that right from the get-go. There are so many tech opportunities out there that will accentuate the first two. Like, we have to understand we need our people first. We have to create that culture. Once we create that winning culture and we show them what leadership is rather than management, we can move to the next step. Once we lead them, we can develop that process that is necessary for success. Then we introduce them to technology. there are so many great companies out there, like Doug's company. Doug and Doug will attest to this. I promote his company hand over hand over hand. It is just, we need to singularly bring it back to a single person. People don't want to go into the dealership and have to talk to 8 people to buy a car. They don't. They want one person. They want to do it in an hour. They want to be in, out, and down the road and happy that they made the correct decision and they solved the solution for the transportation needs. That's it. And we need to do that. The second thing that I just want to mention here, about a month and a half ago, I did a poll on what would you do with an extra 5.5 hours in a dealership a day? And it was call your clients, text them, look for new opportunities, self-improvement training, or another. 47% of the respondents said self-improvement and training. Now, here's the kicker. In managing time, no one works that extra 5.5 hours a day in the dealership. So they're begging for training in that time that they're not doing it.
Absolutely. I think it's a proven fact that that's absolutely the amount of downtime.
Yes.
in the dealership.
Yeah, I was in a dealership the other. Go ahead.
On their phones, they're playing Candy Crush for 4 hours.
Bruno, in the United States, when COVID hit, a lot of the dealers were freaking out because they wouldn't let people come in for sales. But what they did is they deemed fixed operations was essential. I still think they screwed up. The thing that was essential was the customers, because we sometimes seem to forget that we're there to keep them happy so they'll come back and spend more money. It's just the strangest paradigm I've ever seen. Bruno, I always tell salespeople that we always kiss the wrong butts. Your manager and your owner don't really pay you. They're the middle guys handling the money. It's your customer. And yet when you think how people are treated so disrespectfully and so cavalierly, particularly if the credit's bad, it's just frightening. It's just, we need to look in the mirror and think, how the hell would I want to be treated if I called somebody, or if my car was in service, or if I wanted to buy something? The callousness only costs us and the dealer's money.
There shouldn't be more selling going on in the manager's office than the floor.
I think we had a comment from Joe that maybe Doug wanted to have a thought on here. So Doug, if you want to chime in, maybe you can talk about it.
Sure, I appreciate the opportunity. I think you're all getting back to it. It was funny, you were talking about that fight on the showroom floor, and I think what we're seeing is the new reality is starting to rear its ugly head, which was, hey, what was so easy in 2022 now is a challenge in 2023, and now people are getting frustrated and getting all upset about everything. And candidly, it has to go back to starting with the customer. And look, we all know that no one likes the traditional way of buying a car. No one likes being passed from person to person. No one likes getting put through the gauntlet. And dealers need to recognize this and quit being stubbornly attached to a traditional model that just doesn't resonate with people anymore. And we've consistently seen it, in our company at A to Z Sync, that no matter where you roll out a one-person model, no matter the demographic, the community, the size of the store, anything, everybody loves it. The employees love it, which to me is the most important aspect of it, because to Bruno's point, if you take care of your employees, it will trickle down to the customer. And if you make it so that the employees have a career and not simply a job that they really detest, and that they don't tell people what they really do because they're afraid to say I'm a car salesperson. If you change that view, change that dynamic, give them a career, support them, coach them, make them have a respectable position that they love, it will obviously trickle down to the customer, and customers absolutely love it. But dealers just have to be willing to jump in, and there's no better time than now to do so.
Jeff?
It's very funny. A gentleman, Ian knows, I know, up here just retired. He posted a retirement thing the other day. And he made one line which just was so touching and so eloquent, especially the car business. He got to do it at his own timing and his own decision. And wouldn't that be nice if more people could do that in the car business, where they just didn't leave the car business because of the other thing? You know, that's a tremendous thing. And by the way, Doug, when Joe said, for me, is he saying you can fight the same salesperson every time? I love it. I
talked to Chip about this a couple of years ago. I really liked the A to Z concept, and Brian Benstock is a huge proponent of it. I remember many years ago, I was in his dealership doing some other training on another product, and it had a similar output. It was called IntelliCar, and it was iPad based, but the dealers resisted it. You had all the information right on the iPad, and you could do the deal, go back and forth with the sales manager, but the dealers resisted it because the cost of the iPad and the cumbersome nature of what the iPad was being held by, just a little bit out of its time. But the whole concept of going back to one-on-one. Ray Katina does this in New Jersey. All of his dealerships are one-on-one. And I don't know, what's he up to, 15 or 20 Highline stores? Mercedes, Jaguar.
Yeah, significant ones. Yeah, some small ones, but yeah.
Well, the bottom line here.
He has stores that are doing 500 cars a month,
Mhm.
whether it's COVID or not.
Yeah.
It isn't about iPad, it isn't about technology, it's about you train competent people to do their job with the customer, they can get it done. When you think your salespeople are just grunts and throw them out there and don't train them or anything, so they have to go running back.
Right.
The sales managers, some of these sales managers need it so that they feel job security. Depending on.
Respect. It's about respect.
Exactly. And I'll never forget watching King of Cars back in the 90s. And the salespeople were liners. The sales manager were really what the salesperson should be doing, because all their job was to go pick a car. The desk manager was basically what a sales manager should be doing. And who knows what else from there. So it worked then, but still working now. But I remember something here. Vancouver's a big city. We do a lot of Hollywood productions here. And therefore we get a lot of Hollywood people that come through here. And it was in the news a few years ago, a young lady who is she's a B-grade celebrity, was at the airport, and somebody caught him on a cell phone video camera in security, the Canadian version of TSA. And they were making her take off her stuff and bleeping, and she actually had a meltdown in front of them and said, "Do you know who I am? How can you do this to me?" And the reason I mention this is leads into my next question. Are we who we think we are? Are dealers really who they think they are? And staring at me is Don right now, so Don, I'm going to go to you and get you to answer that. Are we really who we think we are?
I think we are who we think we are.
What do we think we are?
We think we're the ticket. You are what you become. I work with some very dynamic people, and I reflect that. I'm not as outspoken as maybe I can be. People that know me, respect me, know that I'm knowledgeable, and I bring a certain amount of decorum to the room. I've been in showrooms where I've seen those fights, incidentally. I have a colleague that had a gun pulled on him in Springfield, New Jersey, at a dealership called Autoland.
22.
The 22. We've seen it all. In this business, 20, 30 years, you learn the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you need to be dynamic, Look at where Larry is all over the country. People are all over the country see every kind of environment, and they have to thrive in every kind of environment. And I've relocated from the Northeast to the South. It's a different culture. And
You didn't explain that the guy that got the gun pulled on him in New Jersey was justified. It was a Hyundai store, and the guy wouldn't take the warranty. This is a while back.
It wasn't the pony. So, it's, hey, when early in my career, I went on a test drive, like, I remember this is Canada. We don't have a gun culture here other than in the prairies to go hunting with. And I went to test drive with a guy, he's driving the car, and I looked over to him, and I swear, Scout's honor, he had a pearl handle revolver sitting in his waistband. So I got the hell out of Dodge. But Bruno, what's your thought? The purpose of this question was, a lot of dealers think they are, the only thing I can think is all that in a bag of chips. Do you know who we are? We are blah, 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 blah. And people like you and John and Larry and Peter and all of us, we go into these places and go, oh my gosh, what's wrong here? So do you think, and answer yes, no, whatever you want, do you think we are who we think we are?
Again, you have met these dealers that are just as smooth as silk and could go to the floor and sell a customer a car right now. And they came up with a business and their employees love working for them. Again, I'll use Jermaine as an example. Everybody loves working there. Great company. Jermaine. So, we know these guys and they know exactly who they are, right? And they know their place. And then there are the other guys that, they have to be in their own TV commercial. So, which is a kind of a big red flag. So once again, it's a franchisee world. We can't make blanket statements when we've got, several thousand different individuals that are controlling, the average dealer group here in the US, the average group owns what, Don, maybe 5 stores, 4, right? When you look at the 18,000 universe, some of those guys you look at Hank Soames down on the Mexican border there in Texas. The guy's a legend. He has a band. He plays at all the community events with his band. He's bilingual. His band plays Spanish music, English music. The guy just owns the town, where he is. So you really, one of the things I love about this business is meeting guys that if they weren't a car dealer, they would have been very successful at whatever else they did. Okay, because they did learn the secret. We keep going back to it. Their people love them. They know how to manage people. These people will work 7 days a week if they need to for these kind of cult of personality dealers. We talked about this, Ray Katina. Ray Katina is a guy, everybody loves working for him. He's hugely successful. He's got great operations. So it's tell me, depending on where I'm standing, what store I'm standing, that's the answer I'll give you. Some of these guys are terrible, okay? Do not know how to work with people, and their sales reflect that. They're clinging to a franchise, and one day they'll sell it, and somebody will take it over and boost it by 20, 30% across the board because they know what they're doing. So some companies have figured this out. The people at AutoNation seem to like their job. So we got a lot of AutoNation stores here, and I deal with them, and everybody just seems to really, they hire a certain type of person that fits in. They're not, you go to an AutoNation store, it is not the cowboy dealership type of people that you meet in other places. Okay, everybody there toes the line at AutoNation. These are the processes, and that's it. So it's fun, and it keeps us all in business. That there are so many different people that keep making all these mistakes, and it's like painting the Brooklyn Bridge with some of these places, right? You've got to keep going in there, retraining, and then the turnover in sales is, why do we have an industry where the turnover in sales is more than 50%? But then some stores don't turn anybody over, and it's the same sales guys for 20 years, right?
Hey, Bruno, I believe the quote you're looking for is Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. Most of us would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism.
I like it. Writing that down.
Yeah.
One of
Well,
the things
go
one
ahead.
of the things there is, I believe the answer to the question is 20% of the dealerships are amazing, 20% of the dealerships are horrific, and 60% wallow in mediocrity. And with that, it comes to one thing that my wife is famous for telling me is the unconscious incompetence. They don't know that they don't know, and because they don't know, they'll never get better.
Well, I don't know if I'd be that. I don't know if I'd be that harsh. And it was kind of interesting. So I was talking to a nice young lady, does a lot of events all over North America for dealers. And years ago, she worked for a local legend here, Jimmy Pattison. She was a woman in the car business back when, probably 10, 15 years ago, when it was a little bit unusual. And she said she was on the lot. It was a dirt lot. She had her high heels on. She was trying to move a car. The high heels were destroyed. And Jimmy Pattison was on the lot, and he said, well, like, can I help you? She goes, yeah, like, it's kind of a challenge, but, you have stuff to do, Jimmy. It's all good. And she said she showed up the next day, and they were paving the lot. She said, well, what are they doing here? She goes, well, I didn't ask. She said, yeah, you don't have to ask. Just got it done. Like, just fix the problem. And it's not like Jimmy has extra time. I mean, his combined companies made $14 billion last year. He employs almost 60,000 employees throughout North America. And he started out selling cars part-time in college, and people told him the car business wasn't for him. And he still works 7 days a week.
That's how he got to be who he is and what he is, because his attention to detail and his approach to saying, let's fix things quickly, right? Jack Welch's whole thing was always, whatever it is, let's get on it quick and let's solve it rather than wallow in it. It always blows my mind how much people want to bitch. Either fix it or shut up. Like Bruno, I already gave you Norman Vincent Peale. I hate to do this on Eldridge Leave right here. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If we can fix it, let's fix it. If we can't, shut up and let me go back to selling a car.
Exactly.
Well, are we talking about companies or are we talking about general managers? Because there's a big difference here. Because you can have a really bad general manager inside a really good company, and you can have a great general manager inside of a really weak company. And I have something that I like to call the fire sale, not what it sounds like. A GM told me a long time ago, I was following him across the floor in Totowa, New Jersey, on Route 46. And I was talking to him, and I said, look, you have a problem. And he stopped. He said, I have a problem. What's my problem? I said, well, you're the only guy on the street that doesn't have Auto Trader. And everybody here is pulling in 75, 80 leads a day. And that's your business that they're getting. And he said, come on in my office. And he said, Bruno, you said something very smart. He said, I have a problem. He said, people with opportunities can go take a seat out front. People that tell me I have a problem, I need to talk to them now, because that's what I do. I fix problems all day, and then I go home at 9 o'clock at night. Okay? So when you are trying to sell to a general manager of a store or anybody that runs any business, unfortunately in our business, very hard to find a general manager that will talk to you about next quarter or next month, because he's focused on the last day of the month. He puts out fires all day. So what do? I go into a store and I start a fire, or I won't get any attention. So by starting a fire, by positioning what it is that you think he needs as a problem, not an opportunity, but you have a problem, you will get a GM's attention 9 out of 10 times much faster by telling them they have a problem. Because it is a culture of putting out fires, fixing problems all day. People are walking into his office with problems all day, and then he goes home. So if you're not one of those people that walks in with a problem, you're going to get zero face time.
So Bruno, you're basically an arsonist from New Jersey. Don knows a few of those.
Correct. Correct.
And Joel Benson, who's one of our show sponsors, had a comment. Maybe he wants to speak to it. If he doesn't, that's fine. Did you want to speak to that, Joel, or you want me to frame it? I think he's on mute. I'm just going to frame it. We'll go from there. 100% right on people along, and the same button has been broken on my local Volvo dealer since 2012. I literally ride the elevator on purpose every time I'm there just to see if it's been fixed. Leaving that store was the best move I ever made. It's like the time capsule. Nothing ever changes.
Exactly right. It's all the same sales guys, PM, and like I would love and kill to have that kind of job security, but when you have everybody stays there because the culture is so good, that's one thing. when you have everybody stays there because everybody has found their own little La Brea tar pit of misery, that's a totally different animal, right? It's a completely different scenario. And that store just absolutely has it. I remember sitting in that finance office in 2013. The third time I asked the guys to run the cable behind the wall down to the plug so I wouldn't just have cables dangling there. And like, I could do it. I could do that myself. But that wasn't the point. The point is we had orders, we had a lot guy, we had an IT guy, we had all this infrastructure, and it never got fixed. And I remember sitting there looking at that little tab on the elevator being broken, and I think it was like my third work anniversary there, and nobody had fixed that. And you could see it. It's not like it's hidden. And nobody had fixed it. And I thought, nothing is ever going to change here.
What?
I'm never going to move up. I'm never going to move down. I'm never going to make more. I'm never going to make less. This is where, and my wife said this. She goes, "This is where car guys go to die." And I was like, "Well, I'm too young to die. I got to get out of here." And that's how I began my motorcycle journey that led me to Harley. But yeah, anyway, there you go.
Well,
Until Lithia buys the store, by the way, then Lithia will buy it, and that'll be that.
Well, I had talked to a dealer that I work with, and they had one of their finance managers quit, and they said, "Well, what was the straw that broke the camel's back?" He says he kept telling us to take this cable that was hanging on the wall and put it up above, and like nobody did that. And he eventually just said, "I'm out, dude. Like you guys can't even move a cable. Like what's going on here?" But the funniest one,
I think that's legitimate.
like what? Like what?
Totally legitimate. You can't do the basics to present yourself as a competent professional industry to a high-end customer when they have other options. We're in a major city. We're not the only Volvo store. There's like 5. Like, no.
Joe, it's the broken windows theory that Giuliani.
Broken windows theory, exactly right.
I learned something that I will never forget, and I teach everybody. I'm at the dealership that I wound up owning first couple days, and the general manager's walking out. I won't mention his name. And the operator says, "You have a call, boss." And he says, "Tell him I left." And I thought, this is truly a moron. What if it's a guy with a small problem and you solve it? Now you're a hero. What if it's somebody that wants to buy 2 cars? It's like, the hell with him. He won't take my call. Find somebody else. Once again, it's the urgency of looking in the mirror and realizing we ain't the priority. They're the priority. And I mean, I know owners. I never did this one myself, but they tell me in 20 groups, they throw trash on the ground just to see who picked up the trash. Because once your culture starts to slip, once your pride isn't there, you're done. It doesn't matter. You don't need Jesus. You don't need your mother. You don't need the governor. You need to be able to look in the mirror and say, "I don't care what the hell everybody else is doing. I'm doing it." And by the way, I saw Joe and Joe said Jewish lightning for the arsonist. If we're going in that damn direction, Bruno, they asked for it. Bruno, why don't Italians like Jehovah's Witnesses?
I give up.
Italians don't like any witnesses. Sit Trenton joke.
Oh man.
You're stealing all my material, Bruno. Just get some of your damn dealers to hire me.
I invited
My
it.
Sergeant Pepper pie. This is expensive accoutrements. You see that, Joe? Accoutrements. I threw French in for you.
I invited a Jehovah's Witness into my house here last week. I sat him down. I gave him a drink of water. I said, "What is it you want to talk about?" He said, "I have no idea. I've never gotten this far."
Bruno, I handle the funny stuff, okay? You just handle the deal attraction stuff, okay? I'm the group nut on this call. Don't put me out of work. With Biden,
All right, you got it.
never get a job again.
Well, my dad had an experience years ago with one in Toronto. So they knocked on the door. They said, "Yeah, we want to do this." He goes, "Oh, I'm the 7th priest of Amun Ra. We're actually looking for people for human sacrifices. Are you interested?"
He gave me some names, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, next question.
Joe and Ian mentioned about that little wire or anything. How many people have we lost for the stupidest little things? It's not the major stuff. It's not I can't earn a living. It's not I don't have any cars. It's not anything. It's because, you know, they needed something from their boss and their boss walked out the door and said, I'll deal with you later. The thing on the wall, how many customers have we lost because they're standing, we talked about this before the show, they're standing in front of the service advisor and literally 2 feet, they're on the phone and they don't go, hi, just be a minute. They just ignore them. It is the little things that we lose and we miss that. And, you know, it's funny because we're talking about good teams. You talk about the Germains of the world. You talk, Don mentioned Brian Benstock. There's a guy that, you know, he's not just making himself a celebrity, which he is. Hey, he was on Fox News, so he's got to hit that like crazy. But he's also there on the floor every single day, seeing what's going on. And, you know, I don't even know if Brian has a vote or not. You know, I just don't think he's lived up to our expectations. He needs a vote. But, oh, come on, guys. Larry, sorry.
Don't worry. Now you're with Bruno. Let me handle the funny stuff. But keep in mind, while Ben Stock's wired a little tight, you know one thing he does that's unbelievably admirable? He holds everybody accountable, including himself. I always thought the worst thing a manager can do is be your buddy and let you go broke. The manager has to be able to kick in the ass so you and your family can eat. Again, it's all back to when you go, what is your, I love to say, Joe, if you have a dog and you point, your dog never looks in the direction you're pointing, he looks at your finger. Our goal as leaders and as humans and as family guys is to know which direction we're going so we can drag everybody else in that direction. And we're only here for a short visit. We might as well turn up the volume and have it make some sense.
Exactly, Larry. And we got to be leaders, not managers.
Exactly.
We lead our teams. We manage the results.
Exactly.
I've
So
never seen Ben Stock in action, but at the dealership level, but I can guarantee his accountability starts with, okay, how are we doing? How's it going? What about this? Not you. And that's the key to get people going. So tell me something. Is there an area in the dealership that we can trust to operate properly with just normal supervision, without exceptional supervision? And Don.
Sometimes the get ready department has people that are very well organized because they're on the ball, they're on schedule. Car has to be ready for the customer to pick up. They have very few things that can go wrong. Their people are usually on time. They have a process that's 3 or 4 or 5 steps, easy to accomplish. Usually the manager is supervising pretty closely, and usually nothing gets by them. If there are issues, there are small scratches that can be touched up. Unless you come in the days of Cosmoline, when cars are imported from Europe and you have that oil all over the cars, sometimes it would take extra touch up. You might be aware of that coming from a Volvo environment. But as a rule, that's probably the tightest little process in the showroom. In the organization or in the office, getting all the work out on time, getting the checks out and paid. Also very important. Usually not a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very good point. I'm actually going to quickly jump over to Doug because A to Z is like front to back. Doug, what do you think? Because you're exposed to this from the start to finish, in the middle. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to agree with what Gino wrote in the comments. There's a department that's on cruise control unless you've created an environment where cruise control has been developed. You can't just assume it's just going to work. Your culture has to create a vision of accountability, a vision of empowerment, and you have to expect and inspect that that's happening. And once you have that, yeah, you can have departments that are on cruise control. But that being said, you should never be satisfied. You should always be looking for improvements so that there's always a way for everybody to grow. And it's all about growth. So I echo what Joe said. I mean,
Hey, Doug, can I echo what you said and take it one notch up? You
Sure.
can't be on cruise control because there's plenty of departments that run great, and one day they just jump off the tracks. And Don, I don't know which cleanup department you were in, but when I used to go back to mine in Trenton, the pot smoke was thick enough to make you think you were at a Grateful Dead concert, and the music was loud enough to make you think you were at a Who concert. That's musical references.
Well, let's face it, guys. The ideal scenario is that the store is focusing on opportunities for growth and not putting out fires all the time. And that's your ultimate, North Star, and that's where dealers have to get to. And sometimes you gotta blow out some people, get rid of bad apples to get to that point. And once you've got that, then, it's great because everybody's involved in, great, what's our next opportunity, not what's our last fire that we're running to put out.
Doug is a brilliant man. Listen carefully to what he said about firing people. And remember, Career Changers USA. I'm just saying.
So Jeff, we're almost out of time. So maybe you want to do a last round of comments with shameful plugs, I guess. Go ahead, Jeff.
Perfect, guys. So let's turn to Bruno quickly for his comments on the last question, because I don't want to leave you hanging because I can see it.
I think that these days dealerships, a lot of them are old, outdated, and there's a lot of physical plant issues that a lot of companies aren't addressing. So they need to do that. They need to invest in the physical plant.
Perfect. Actually, it's quite funny though. I agree with you completely. Sometimes we go too much on the other side. Nail salons, cushy bars. My personal favorite was a little hair massage lady. That was really quite nice. But then there's some like Bob Ruth Ford in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. That's in the 96-year-old building that does, they're knocking it out of the park because Peter said they started with people. Then they go to process, then they go to facilities, spelled with PH. Gentlemen, everybody, thanks for joining. The final comments from anybody. Bruno.
TRAXTION.com, a phenomenal product. Check it out. You have any stores that are the key to tires is the key to retention to everything, sales, you name it. Number one point of defection.
Perfect. I do have to say, we do have a new sponsor coming on called Wicked Anagrams. They will sell you names for your companies like TRX. I gotta love it, man. I gotta love everybody's names here. Don.
I have to agree with Bruno. It all starts with making sure that your people don't defect, whether it's your people that work for you or your customers. You have to find better ways to keep them engaged. I think that 2023 is the year of engagement. I was reading in the NIADA workshop report last week that during COVID, turnover had been reduced to almost 35, 36%. They expect to go back up to 45, 50% this year. So that makes it an epidemic again. And when we say epidemic, we know that it also affects the best performers because it puts a heavier workload on them, and it makes it more like crisis management, whether it's in a showroom or in the shop. And the best people feel that. And the other part of the survey was that they are gauging that there are a lot of people that are looking to get out of the fixed ops operation within the next 3 years and open their own shops, because they feel like they can make much more money and they're not being paid well enough. Bruno can certainly attest to that. So we need to pay these people what they're worth. Everybody made a lot of money the last couple of years. Let's share it. And I'm hearing a lot of dealers, I'm hearing from general managers, they're leaving dealerships. In fact, they've been talked to left. I sent 3 over to them. We can't find them jobs. They left dealerships that weren't well run because they had issues with their bosses, and because they're cutting salaries of the people underneath them. There's no need to cut salaries when the economy changes. People are going to work harder to make more money and feed their families, or they're going to need to find another job.
Right.
Hey, there are dealers that cut salaries now that they started getting inventory. they started cutting pay, during COVID. They figured everybody was making too much money, but they couldn't afford to take the chance. And now, wow, heck, we got cars, let's cut it. Anyways, thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. We will be back next week, and we do have our third anniversary show coming up, which will be a free-for-all of fun, and of course, compliments on your good-looking and very, very highly hairy co-hosts. So thank you all. Ian, I'll leave it to
I'll
you.
send you a cake.
Hair's extra, I guess. Anyway, so here we go. Thanks very much for everybody, and I appreciate all the thoughts. If you want a link to that short video, it's great. Let me know. Here we go.
Have a good
Thank
week.
you.
Take care. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks for joining us. It was a great show, and follow us anywhere you would like on your favorite podcast, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course on our YouTube, or subscribe to our own channel.